Sayın Dekanım ve değerli öğretim elemanları, İstanbul Üniversitesi İktisat Fakültesi tarafından düzenlenen Yabancı Dilde Etkili ders sunumu etkinliğine hepiniz hoş geldiniz. Covid-19 ve beraberinde getirdiği belirsizlik ile pandeminin hayatımıza etkilerine, ne kadar süreceğini, sonucunda neler olacağına dair sayısız tahmin ürettiğimiz bu dönemde çalışma hayatında da dönüşümlerin eşiğinde olduğumuzu anlıyoruz. Bu dönüşüm bildiğiniz gibi öğretim yöntemleri, sunum teknikleri ve ölçme-değerlendirme süreçlerini de etkiledi. Bu bağlamda yabancı dilde etkili sunum teknikleri ve sınıf içi iletişim konularını kapsayan etkinliğimize hoş geldiniz. Bildiğiniz üzere 2020-21 eğitim öğretim yılından itibaren fakültemizde biri %100, 4'ü %30 oranında İngilizce olmak üzere 5 diploma programımızda yabancı dilde eğitim verilecek. Bu açıdan bugünkü etkinliğimiz oldukça önemli fakültemiz açısından. Dolayısıyla gösterdiğiniz ilgiye tekrardan teşekkür ediyorum. Değerli konuklar, şimdi açılış konuşmalarını yapmak üzere İktisat Fakültesi Dekanı Sayın Profesör Doktor Sayın Yorgun'u davet ediyorum.
Hocam çok teşekkür ediyorum. Öncelikle kıymetli hocalarım, değerli meslektaşlarım, hoş geldiniz. Bu toplantıda bulunmaktan, sizlerle birlikte olmaktan duyduğum mutluluğu ifade etmek istiyorum. Bu vesileyle de birkaç hususu sizlerle paylaşmak istiyorum. Hatırlayacağınız gibi göreve başladığım günden itibaren uluslararasılaşmak için yabancı dilin ne kadar önemli olduğuna vurgu yaptım. Biraz önce Hakan Hocam'ın söylediği gibi önümüzdeki dönemde İngilizce hazırlıktaki genişlemeyi dikkate aldığımızda, bölümlerimizin İngilizce ders verme oranlarını dikkate aldığımızda, bölüm hocalarımıza yönelik böyle bir seminerin faydalı olacağını düşündük. Dolayısıyla önümüzdeki dönemde iddiamız şudur: İstanbul İktisat Fakültesi mezunu gençlerimiz inşallah sizlerin de katkısıyla yabancı dil problemini çözmüş, ikinci yabancı dil bilen öğrenciler olarak mezun olsun istiyoruz. Yine bir başka önemli husus, fakültemiz hocalarının da gerek ders içi çalışmalarında gerekse tebliğ, konferans gibi alanlarda daha yetkin bir şekilde fakültemizi temsil edebilmesi için elimizden gelen tüm desteği hocalarımıza vereceğimizi bir kez daha burada ifade etmek istiyorum. Çünkü sizleri önemsiyorum. Sizler bizim fakültemizin uluslararasılaşmasında en önemli adımları atacak hocalarımızsınız. Çünkü dil yeterliliğiniz bu noktada bizim için çok önemli ve bunu hem yazdığınız makalelerle hem de sunduğunuz tebliğlerle, uluslararası projelerle hayata geçirmenizi bekliyoruz. Yüklerinizin ağır olduğunu altına çizmek istiyoruz. Çünkü sizden gerçekten beklentimiz çok yüksek. Bu vesileyle bir hususun daha altını çizmek istiyorum. Biliyorsunuz akademik bilgi sistemimiz var. Artık çalışmalarımızı bu sistem üzerinden takip edeceğiz. Bundan sonra aylık olarak bütün çalışmalar takip edilecek ve sistemden otomatik olarak dekanlık adresinden bilgiler alarak rektörlüğe ileteceğiz. Dolayısıyla bütün hocalarımdan ricam şudur: yaptığınız tüm faaliyetleri, bu proje olabilir, tebliğ olabilir, makale olabilir, kitap olabilir, aklınıza gelebilecek bilimsel tüm çalışmalarınızı lütfen bilgi sistemimize yükleyelim. Çünkü bundan sonra otomatik olarak aylık bu bilgi sisteminden yaptığınız çalışmaları kontrol edeceğiz ve bu bilgileri rektörlüğümüze aylık olarak bildireceğiz. Dolayısıyla önümüzdeki dönemde ki çalışmalarınızı daha yakından takip edeceğimizi altını çizmek istiyorum. Bir başka önemli husus, öğrencilerimiz mezuniyetle ilgili bizlere çok soru soruyorlardı. Bu konuda sizi de bilgilendirmek istiyorum. Bir aksilik olmazsa aldığımız kararla ayın 17 ve 18'inde 2 gün olarak mezuniyet törenimizi yapmayı planlıyoruz. Üniversitemizin bahçesinde yapacağız, saat 17'de yapacağız. Öğrencilerimizi 2 grup halinde törene alacağız. Aileler katılmayacak ama canlı yayın yapacağız. Ve o mezuniyet duygusunu öğrencilerimizin yaşaması için elimizden gelen tüm gayreti göstereceğiz. Siz hocalarımızdan ricam şu olacak: lütfen bu mezuniyete gerekli ilgiyi gösterin. Çünkü öğrencilerimizin aileleri yanında olmayacak ama hocaları mutlaka yanında olsun arzu ediyorum. Salgına ilişkin tüm tedbirleri alacağız. Orada hiçbir olumsuzluğun yaşanmaması için gerekli özeni göstereceğimizi bilmenizi istiyorum. Özellikle davetimizi kabul ederek bizlerle birlikte olmayı tercih ettiği için hocamız Tuncer hocamıza huzurlarınızda çok teşekkür ediyorum. Çok başarılı bir seminer olacağından hiç şüphem yok. Ben yıllık izindeyim ve buna rağmen açılışa katılmayı arzu ettim ve takip de edeceğim. Başarılar diliyorum. Hepinize en içten sevgi ve saygılarımı sunuyorum.
Sayın Dekanımıza konuşmalarından dolayı teşekkür ediyoruz. Bugünkü seminerimizin konuşmacısı İstanbul Üniversitesi Cerrahpaşa Hasanili Yücel Eğitim Fakültesi öğretim üyesi Tuncer olacak. Tuncer Hocam hoş geldiniz. Sözü Tuncer Hoca'ya vermeden önce kendisini sizlere kısaca tanıtmak istiyorum. Doktor öğretim üyesi Tuncer 2001 yılında İstanbul Üniversitesi İngiliz Dili Eğitimi Anabilim Dalı'ndan mezun oldu. Yüksek lisans ve doktora derecelerini yine İstanbul Üniversitesi'nde tamamladı. Şu an İstanbul Üniversitesi Cerrahpaşa Hasanili Yücel Eğitim Fakültesi'nde İngiliz Dili Eğitimi Anabilim Dalı'nda yabancı dil öğretmenleri yetiştirmekte. Aynı zamanda İstanbul Üniversitesi Cerrahpaşa Yabancı Diller Yüksekokulu'nda müdür yardımcılığı ve sürekli eğitim merkezinde de müdürlük görevlerini yürütmektedir. Şimdi de sözü Tuncer Hoca'ya bırakmak istiyorum. Buyurun hocam.
Like I said, Hakan Hocam, I'm going to continue in English, so it is just very natural. And thank you very much for your presentation. And Sayın Hocam, thank you very much as well for your very kind words. If we did this presentation last year or a year before, I would have been from Istanbul University, but unfortunately, due to many unfortunate events, right now I'm representing Istanbul University Cerrahpaşa, but from our hearts, we are still at Istanbul University, of course. So I would like to thank you for inviting me, and of course, we are continuing to collaborate very closely with Istanbul University, and especially with your faculty. And in this context, I'm really honored to be here and to be able to present with you, with your faculty. And I'm very also happy that you are also investing into foreign languages business, as well as economics, of course. And I'm really hopeful that Istanbul University is going to complete this internationalization process, and then Istanbul University will have more and more foreign students, and not only our students will speak the foreign languages, but the foreign students will be coming to our university to, I said our university because I really from heart and from still from Istanbul University. In this context, this week at the weekend actually, we were at your faculty doing the years, the foreign students exam for EUJ this time, and we did, like I said, we are continuing the close collaboration, so it's a real honor for me to be here with you. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and going to share my presentation with you. Let me just very quickly. Better sound, yes, okay. So here it is. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, of course, start by actually Hakan Hocam, you really introduced me very well. Since we are a smaller university now, there are lots of things that we have to do individually, and yeah, there are many things that we have to overtake in the last year. And like you said, we have to do lots of things. I'm also representing the Foreign Languages Department and the Continuing Education Department as well as Faculty of Education, Hasanili Yücel, Faculty of Education, English Language Teaching Department. And this is my email, so you can always write to me, and I can always be helping you if you need anything in the meantime. So let me first start with my summary. So this is basically what I'm going to talk about in this presentation with you. First, I'm going to talk about the strategies for effective communication, because I'm going to argue that this is a process that we are building. This is not something that is happening by itself, effective communication, but it is happening by building it step by step, class by class, individually, word by word. So I'm going to argue about this and how we can achieve this. I have been teaching effective communication skills for the last 15 years or so. And I have been teaching this in the context of language teachers, but I think this is also going to apply for you and for your department, since you are also going into a foreign languages teaching. And then I'm also going to talk about how to teach in large classes, what works and what doesn't, because historically Istanbul University is a magnet for students, and we really have excessive number of students in our classes. In my case, for example, I have classes of 90 students, 100 students eventually, and of course it's difficult, but then I will try to talk about what works and what does not work in these contexts. And then I'm going to talk about, since you're going to, and Sayın Hocam as well, talked about that you're also aiming to teach foreign languages to your graduates. So I'm going to give you two of the latest theories that are actually opening up the field for content, which is what you are doing, what we are doing, content introduction, information introduction to our students, and then language business, the language learning business. So there is a theory that is called content and language integrated learning, which we are teaching to our students, which works in the context of business English, which works in the context of medical English, English for law, aviation English, and blah, blah, blah, blah, lots of other topics. So I'm going to talk about these two theories, which one of which is CLIL, like we call it, content and language integrated learning, and the second one is the task-based learning. These are the two theories that are sweeping the business of foreign languages these days. And in this context, I'm going to talk about these so that you as teachers can also understand the value of foreign language teaching as well as content introduction that you're doing already in your classes. So this is basically the summary of what I'm going to talk about today. So let's start with building communication. Let's start with building the effective communication in the classrooms, right? So we cannot say that when we are born, we are completely ready to communicate. No, we are not. We are actually learning it by building and by observing what's happening around us, right? So first of all, we really have to have a clear goal and objective for each class, which means I have to know my students. I have to know what I am expecting from them. I have to know what they're expecting from me. In this context, I have no questions that you are already doing this, because I'm seeing people here experience for more than 20, 25, 30 years perhaps. So I really can't tell you much about that, because this is a very natural process that we are actually acquiring by only teaching, by only doing this business, right? So, however, it is always a plus when you have a fun and motivating atmosphere, which is the teachers who are loved most are these teachers who are very relaxed, who come into the classroom, do jokes, make jokes, and then laugh with the students. So in this context, if you can give it in, if you can a little bit relax and then go into the classroom enjoying it, but not being very sturdy, very strict, but just enjoying it, I think this is a good way to start and building effective communication with a class, even if it is in a foreign language, right? So, because it does not change, it's the same process. I have been teaching English for more than 20 years now. I have been teaching at Istanbul University and Cerrahpaşa now for more than 19 years now. And I have always been doing my job speaking English in my classes. It's not different than doing it in Turkish. It's almost the same thing. So this is a transferable skill. This is what I'm talking about. If you're a relaxed person, if you know what you want from your students, if you know what you can give your students here, it doesn't matter if you're doing it in English or in Turkish, it's all the same. But I'm going to give you some tips about if you have some questions about English, about a foreign language, if you have some problems with the foreign language, I'll give you a little bit of tips of what you can do to achieve and have this transition, because this is a transition period for most of you, I believe. You can just get over it very, very quickly, right? So to focus on student talking time rather than, because we are teachers, we really like speaking a lot, right? So we blah, blah, blah, blah, speak, but there is a balance between, so let me just do this. There is a balance between teacher talking time and student talking time in the classrooms. So perhaps one of the things that we should be very clear about is to focus on the student talking time rather than the teacher talking time. And this is one of the tips that I would give you. Let the teachers, let the students speak from time to time, so that you can have a little bit of moment where you can just put up your thoughts and ideas to be able to tell them in a good English, right? So a clear link between the lesson and everyday life. This is a huge thing, but I know that you're all very familiar with all of these ideas, because when you're telling a story, let's say about what happens these days in this country or somewhere in the world, and you put it in a classroom, then the language is no problem anymore. It is the situation, it is the story, it is the morale of the story, it is the ideas that are actually more important than the language itself. So if you can bring the stories from the world, from the country, from the city, from the school, whatever, into your classrooms, it doesn't matter. Nobody will look at how you speak your English. Everybody will be more focused on this as well. So it's an important aspect. Integration of cultural knowledge and skills. This is very important because our students are Turkish. We are Turkish, but then we are trying to do this in English because we believe that it's a good way for them to listen to to English, and then to converse, to speak in English, and then we think that it's good. But on the other hand, we are all Turkish. The only difference is, and we are receiving a lot of Erasmus students, for example, in my class. And when I receive Erasmus students in my class, it's very easy to speak in English because their culture is different, our culture is different. So what happens is, I'm very, frankly, it's very easy for me to switch from Turkish into English, and then it's very easy to converse with these people in English because they are getting their information, getting their perspective, it matters and is very natural. So in this context, integration of cultural knowledge and skills is an important aspect of doing your job with English. Yeah. So, when very frankly, I'm very frank about that. When I have only Turkish students in my class, I also, from time to time, turn into English, and this is not into Turkish. Sorry, and this is no problem because they have to understand the concepts, they have to understand the content. In this context, yeah, this is all right, this is happening. And then inspiring a one-travel teacher. Well, we know more about the world. I'm over 40. I see most of you already are over 40. You know about the world more than our students do. And so go and tell these stories in your classrooms in English. And then your students will not be checking the language that you're speaking, but are going to check the experience, and we'll try to learn from your experience. So this is a small tip that works in the language classes because we want the students to actually focus on the events and ideas and experience, but not the language itself. And then, of course, guidance and coaching. We are all very experienced. We know what to say, when to say, how to say, and where to send our students to do things, right? Because this is in our experience now. We are the teachers, so it's very important to play this role as well. Once your students are, and you know it better than me, most probably, once your students have confidence in you, they will not look at how you speak the language. They will just try to get what they can from you. And then the language will not be a problem anymore. So this is another tip, perhaps. Play the role of a guide, coach, or mentor who gives them ideas, who gives them important advice and important instructions to succeed in life. And then again, it's going to be the job, but not the language. And then ask questions, a lot of questions to your students, so that you give the teacher, the student talking time that is required, and the actual dialogue between the teacher and the students. Once you do that, because I know I'm a teacher too, I like talking a lot, I really want to share all my information, everything, but from time to time, we really have to give them a little bit of time to talk, to think, and then to contribute, because once they feel important in the classroom, my observation is they really want to contribute into the classroom, they want to say, and then this will save you a lot of time for yourself as well as a teacher, and then you can just look at your ideas and just put them together and then continue with the class. And like I said, tell a story. This is very important. Telling stories in the classroom. Of course, preparing them before the class is always a good idea, right? So let's start with, so this is building. This is, good classroom atmosphere, stories, your experience. So you already built your good communication with your students, right? So you already know that. Now we adjust our communication to fit the situations. How? Well, we do not use a lot of fillers, like, because when you stop, then you're distracting the students as well. They are also not looking at you anymore when you're distracting. So we should not use a lot of fillers, a little bit of less fillers. Eh? Don't repeat the same words too often. I used to have a teacher. He was like, so all the time, and then this was distracting me, right? Because anything he wants to say something important, he would just say so, and then this is also another thing that is distracting the students. So try to be natural, just try to be natural, right? And then do not use lengthy pauses too often, because when you are not speaking, you give the problem behavior away. So in this context, the pauses should not be too long, okay, on here. So identifying our goal, we know it. But of course, another important thing in good communication with the classroom is knowing the audience, knowing who is Inek Şaban, yeah, because in all classroom, in all classes, there is one Inek Şaban. There is always this Tulum Hayri, there is always this Kübük Necmi who does the jokes and this is keeping away as if he did nothing. And then we all know these people. Knowing their names, knowing the names of the students is an important aspect of teaching in foreign language as well, right? And watching your words, because in today's world, saying one single simple word can just ruin the whole life of a person. And then we are in this kind of a world, manipulative world, the new postmodern world, and so we have to watch our words a lot in all types of events, from the Istanbul Agreement to be lots of things, So in this context, I think this is very important to watch your words, and then the body language. Of course, we are teachers; we know how to do it. The same with English. Whenever you want to say something important, just go and just do your body language fillers. No problem at all. So let's do this with awareness on our body language as well. Of course, paying attention to other people's feedback. What comes from your students? Because you're teachers and you know it. When you look at the eyes of your students, you know how they feel. You know if they're distracted. You know if they're just emailing down below with their mobiles. You know what they're doing. This is very natural. So what happens is, of course, paying attention to feedback is an important aspect in this context as well. Tips, adapting to other people, of course. How do we do this? We look at them. If you really see that there is a problem behavior in the classroom, you go into the classroom, go around the classroom, and then just keep closer to your students. And then the problems are solved immediately, because using the distance between yourselves and the students is an important aspect. And of course, communication needs to be audience-centered. Yeah, we have to look at them and understand how they feel, and then of course also look into their needs, and making plans about the audience is also so in this context we have to be audience-centered as well, always looking into them as well. And then opening and keeping lines of communication and keeping them open is very important. If your students can talk to you during the class, no problem. If they can write to you, if they can send you emails, if they can send you not only emails, but I don't know, SMS or something, as long as they don't know your phone, it's fine. But of course, we have to keep the lines always open, because once they feel that they can reach you anytime in the classroom, they are also your friends, no problem at all. Even if it's in English or any other language, it doesn't matter at all. And then, of course, it's very important to every day start positive, right? It's always an important aspect to start all our classes in, even if in English, whatever, positively. Proper attention to your students. When you look into their eyes with genuine look, genuine care, and genuine communication, because people are not stupid. Students are not stupid as well. They understand how you feel. towards them. It's very important, right? And of course, respect and kindness. Once they feel that you respect them and you're kind enough to talk to them, to greet them, to say goodbye, to blah, blah, but not this cool teacher who's, you know, created the small mountains, then this pays off. They're helping you in the classroom as well. They don't look at your language, they look at yourself as a human being holistically, right? So this is an important aspect. About the language, I already said that. And then no blame game. This is very important in the classrooms, in English as well, to be able to use the I language rather than the you language. Hey guys, you always, no. Guys, I don't like this in my classroom, it works better than you always do this type of blaming game. So it's better to always use the I language. So I am. I do it like that. I like it as I experienced it. I read somewhere. I saw it here. So because personalizing the language with them is also helping with the stories, and is also helping with the presentation in your classes. Of course, also listening to your students, seeing what they say, and after hearing their comment or hearing their words, what they want to share, just doing the follow-up question. Oh, you really think so, but why? Because this keeps a good communication between you and them, and they understand that their answers are valued, but not because, look, I'm 40 years old, almost 19 years teaching, for 19 years teaching the same lessons, the same content, the same everything. Every year I get the same questions from the same points. And I'm like, come on. But then again, when I feel that they want to say something, I really listen as if I'm hearing it for the first time. But this works because they feel like it is very important for them. And I think that you know this very well anyway, because we are all teachers, right? And of course, emotional responses as well. We have to be able to keep our emotions behind our face, and we call it a teacher mask. We call it a teacher persona. And we should have it. I mean, whatever happens around, whatever happens at school, whatever happens, well, the school, I remember when the politicians wanted to split the school into two. I remember my students in my class weeping, some are doing stuff, but I had to keep my, teacher face. Well, yeah, guys, this is all life, blah, blah, blah, as if nothing happened. But then we have to do that because this is an important aspect of good communication as well. If they see your senses, if they see your limits, then they're always going to play with it. So. And it's not about language, it's about a human relationship anyway. So being a good listener and of course having this teacher face is an important aspect here. And of course emphasizing the areas of agreement, another important aspect, because we as teachers like to be correct and like to be right all the time. But then, like my wife says from time to time, hey, you are not the teacher here. You're the father, you're the husband, you're something else. Because yeah, we play roles. And of course, we should also, from time to time, let our students also have a say in what they want to say, okay? Or have a say in the decisions regarding the class, about an exam, content, about something to read and stuff. So lots of other things, yeah? So we have to be emphasizing agreement, and we have to be willing to compromise from time to time. Like I said, we can't be always right. Life is not always about taking, but it's about giving and taking, because this is a communication, and you know, communication is a two-way word, like in the Turkish işteş, iletişim. So I think it's we have to understand this two-sidedness, and then we have to understand that we have to be compromising, but we cannot take all the time in a classroom. And when you're willing to compromise, what does compromise mean in itself? Compromise means it's something that there are more qualities and more elements into any business, okay? And then that you're open as well, open to communicate, all your lines are open, and then you really want to be part of this community, because classroom is a community, and we all know this. And when we are in this community, and as a teacher, we are part of it. Like I said, language does not matter anymore. Language is something different. But then how you behave, what is your attitude towards your students, this is what matters most. And in this context, of course, being willing to talk is an important aspect here as well. And then promise is the second half of compromise. And what does promise mean? Promise mean that you really want to do business with these people, yeah? Teaching business, of course, yeah? Giving information business, of course, yeah? But this is my job and I do it, that's it. And then release your desire for control. Like I said, we can't be always right. We have to let it go from time to time in a classroom. And once we build this, and then everything will be very easy. And then being optimistic makes you live longer. The research shows that. So being optimistic in a classroom is always better than being this sturdy teacher who's not loved by anyone. So it's always good to have a smiling face and positive remarks and positive relation with your students, yeah? And then minimizing defensiveness. We can't defend all the time because this is a very negative thing to try to defend ourselves all the time. Many things happen in life, many things in the classroom as well. And when we're always trying to defend things, this is not nice. So we should be optimistic. We should be releasing ourselves from them and relax from time to time and not be defensive all the time. Yeah? Inspiration, this is a really very nice human relationship thing, yeah? Because we get, and romanticism, for example, actually lies under the idea that the human beings, the regular and normal human beings can actually give you this feeling of living. And then the same things happens in the classroom as well. Although we look at this as a professional job, this is a professional job, but then we are working with real people, real human beings. And in this context, we really have to be inspired from this as well. And then selflessness, yeah, losing yourself. Of course, we are all human beings. We have our own thoughts. We have our own beliefs. We have many qualities to ourselves. But then in the classroom, forgetting about all that, and then teaching and having the teacher mask, and then just being selfless. This is a very nice moment of, I think, of course, this is my interpretation of the thing of self-realization, right? Because I do my job in the best possible way without letting anything onto my way, even my own personality and my own self, you know. So I'm there on this level that I'm doing my job and like this. And then engaging with the students, of course, because there I see, and you also should be seeing this and experiencing this. I know we are opening up a elective class, and there is always one or two teachers who are receiving the most attention from the students. And why is this? And there are other teachers who are not receiving that many students. And why is this? What is different? Both give or do the same job. Give content, try to make these students better people, good economists, whatever in your context, teachers in my context. But then why do some teachers receive more attention? Well, it is because they engage with the students, because they talk to them, because they build good communication, they build good relationship, and in the context of doing their job, they're actually doing their job with excellence. And of course, communication is the beginning of the excellence. So it's not the information that you have, it's how you share your information with your students. This is what makes the difference in your being more elected, because like I said, you have elective classes and then you're elected more. And this is something important, I think, in our business. All right. So respecting confidentiality, whatever happens in your class stays in your class, and the students know this. Versus you go and you tell about this lazy student all around the school, all the teachers know about what happened in your class. Well, this should not happen. This should be, every class should be unique, right? Yeah, so important. And of course, also avoiding gossip about people, about colleagues, about other students, or whatever, you know. So avoiding gossip is an important aspect in a teacher's job, I believe. And then when a teacher avoids gossip, is respected more, rather than the teacher who, because the function of gossip is actually to build up friendships. That's why people gossip, because they share secrets, they share things that are not revealed to the public, and then they become friends because of this. We understand that. This is an important aspect of human experience. However, in a professional relationship like ours, doing the teaching job, avoiding gossip is an important quality of a good teacher as well. So, and then of course always ending on a positive note, like we started. We started positively. We did many things. We allowed our students to talk. We had good relationship with them. We smiled with them, and then in the end we end in a positive note. So when we all do all of these, when we can do all of these in our classrooms, and we of course control it in our classrooms, then this is becoming, of course, more a real communication between our students. And here, like you see, language is secondary. How you speak English, if you cannot or you can speak English, this does not matter at all. So like you see, teaching with foreign language is not different than teaching with the first language. It's almost the same thing. Now I'm going to give you more tips about how to teach with English. So far we did the natural teaching business, and now how to teach better with English. This is going to be the focus of my presentation from now on. Okay, how to teach with English. All right, so teaching in large classes. I have 90 plus classes. I have 60 plus classes. I even have 100 plus classes, no problem at all. Many people, actually when I started Istanbul University first, one of my first classes was with 200 students. I don't know if you remember one of these certificate programs at the university at the time for foreign language teachers. I had 200 students in my first year of teaching it at the university, 200. And I was like, oh my God, how is this possible? It's possible, it happens, no problem at all. How? So these are things that work. A little bit of advice. First, being organized does not hurt, and it always helps. What does this mean, being organized? When you come to the classroom each time, you do certain things, okay, with certain manners, and they know this is the style, this is your style. So being organized, being prepared for your class is always neat, like what I'm doing right now with you here. I have prepared a presentation, and why is this? Because I can really do the same presentation without any preparation, without any PowerPoint slides, without any input. I can really do that because it's my job. Give me time and then let me talk, and I can talk until morning, no problem for me, right? However, being organized always is good for a big classroom, because then you know what to do when, and then there are no places where this huge group or big group can go around. The same for your English content. Prepare your presentations and use these presentations as cue cards. Okay, that's why I'm saying be organized. Prepare your presentations before and use them as cue cards. What do I mean by cue cards? Like you see what I have done here with yellow. I have my own words, and then I can talk a lot about these words because my experience is, like I said previously, extensive, so I can do that. And then establishing routines. I come to the classroom each time, I do the same ways, I behave the same way, I say the same things, I always do the same things, and then everybody knows what to expect from me, but they are not thinking about if I was happy or not, if the teacher has had a bad evening or whatever, you know, or problems at home or at school. Nobody cares, because like I said, establishing routines and behaving always the same way does not hurt. It really helps with English as well, because you know what to say when in this context then, right? And then using different pace with different activities. And very important aspect, what does that mean? Like I said, when I'm talking, I keep it 10 minutes. And then when I give my students time to talk or prepare something and then give it back to me or give them a task or whatever during the classroom, and then I give them 20 minutes, whatever. So I always do this, and I know when to stop, I know where to go. So this is again very much related to your being organized and establishing routines. And then maximizing individual work. Maximizing individual work in the classroom, which we do not much. Why? Because we behave with the class like it is a whole body. But this whole body of a class that we call the class is actually made up of many people, individual people. So we forget this most of the time. We give them one content and we think that this is okay for everyone. This might not be okay for everyone. So what happens is, of course, maximizing individual work could also help with your classroom and good communication in with your English as well. And then using students, like I said, give them time to talk, let them do something in your classroom. So rather than you always doing more, let the students do more. So why not? And then, but of course for this, you have to have, and we as teachers have to have a different perspective about the information and knowledge. Because what we are thinking is, as teachers, because I'm a teacher too, like I said, and I have the same feeling. And I'm like, if I can give all of my content today, I'm really happy because I did my job. This is my responsibility. And I'm really happy that I did it. But how much of my content was actually absorbed? How much of my content is actually learned? I have no idea. I only have the idea after the exam. And then, but for the exam, I have to wait like 6 weeks. And after 6 weeks, I will know what happened in my class 5 weeks ago. So this is a very difficult situation. So in this context, maximizing individual work during the classroom can actually tell me if they are learning or not, even before my exams. And then using students as well. And then worksheets, of course, preparing some worksheets to work on during your presentation can also work. You know why? Because this way, if your English is a little bit not very nice, if you cannot pronounce good, whatever, but if you prepare these kind of worksheets for your classes, for example, you prepare a worksheet where they have to fill in, because you're doing a presentation in English, yeah? They have to fill in some words, or they have to find relationship between words, some links between what you're talking about, and then they will listen more focused, and they will listen more carefully. And then what happens is they will also continue to listen to you, even if you're making mistakes or whatever. They will not look at this because they have something to play with. So this is a very important aspect of foreign language teaching, I think. Give them worksheets where they have to do some tasks while they are listening to you, and then they will not look at how you speak or what you speak, but they are going to look at the content and the gist of what you're talking about, but not the language itself. So in this context, I believe it's becoming very easy. And of course, using pair and group work, like for example, give small tasks to pairs or to groups in the classroom. This will give you some time to relax, okay? Because trying to say, and especially if your English is not that well, trying to speak all the time is a huge burden. It's a huge stress on you, and then you will understand it after 5 hours of teaching during the day. You will understand what actual stress it was. But then if you are using these breaks, like you do some presentation, and afterwards you give your students a task for 5 minutes, and then they have to come up with a solution, and then you have a time to relax a little bit, and then the stress is not that much. And then what happens is, since you know what they're going to tell you, because you prepare your tasks, you prepare your questions, because you know the answers, then you are going to be able to actually control the content as well, what they're going to tell you. So in this context, it's very easy to interact with the students as well. And of course, using the whole class is also possible. Taking account of vision and acoustics, very important, of course, because I have seen many, let me give an example, a story, because like I said, you have to tell stories. I'm observing teachers, especially in the end of 4th grade. I'm observing teachers and how they're teaching, and afterwards we just graduate them. We say, hey, you're a good teacher. I have seen many students at the back of the class where I'm sitting and observing, don't understand what they're doing, and then they're just like minding their own business. They are not even contributing to the classroom or not even listening. So what happens is it's going like this, you know. So in this context, we have to be taking vision and acoustics really very well into account. I have seen many teachers just opening up some listenings, and then the people sitting at the back are not hearing anything, and then they are not part of the class anymore. So this is an important aspect as well. And then using the size of the group to our advantage. Of course, we know it, yeah. We laugh with them, we make jokes, We let them do the jokes in our classrooms to some extent. And then this is, of course, using the whole group interaction. This is also an important aspect for teaching in a large class. So like I said, it's not a whole burden, but being natural, being genuine, again, like I said, and of course, letting the students do some work instead of you as a teacher doing all the work. And then you can have these breaks in between, and then you can have a much better experience with your students, all right? So right now, just give you an example, like I was telling you. Why don't you write in the chat, because this is an online session and I don't want people to just jumble here. Why don't you write in the chat the answers to this question? Yeah, an approach in which blah blah blah language is used as the teacher, blah blah blah. Yeah, I'm going and looking into the chat what you're writing. Okay, let's go. Oops. Let's complete them in the chat. Yes, Mehmet Baykal Hocam says foreign for number 1. For number 2, M, what does M stand for? Medium, yes, of course, Nejat Hocam. Very good. And then, what is a blah, blah, blah subject? Of course, okay. Curricular, Nejati, yes, of course. Nejat Hocam, that's very nice. And then the subject is, yes, of course. Yeah, Nejat, and then you were just able, okay, thank you. Thank you. You were able to understand that this is all actually in the so you see small tricks, small games, small things. I already have a huge group here, right? I have a big group, but then I engage people like this from time to time. Yeah, so this is an important aspect. See, of course, I knew all the answers, but what I'm doing is trying to engage the people as if this is something very important, or this is something important for you to learn. So in this context, like I said, doing these small tricks in the classroom, using the whole group like this, trying to answer, and with a little bit of gamification, this also helps with teaching foreign language, or actually not teaching foreign language, but using foreign language in your classrooms. Like you see, everything is controlled by me as a teacher, because I know the answers, I know what they're going to tell me, and of course this is very easy. So in this context, let's now start talking about, I felt part of the class, so yeah, thank you, Nejat. Content and language integrated learning. Okay, this is one of the theories, the content and language integrated learning, which actually you know very well in this country. And I'm sure some of you might have, because I see that your age range is okay with this, that some of you were actually trained and some of you were actually educated by this approach, content and language learning, integrated language learning. So let me just start with a little bit of history for you, just for you to know and understand the whole concept and then apply it to our job, okay? So first of all, content and language integrated learning started in Canada, okay? It started in Canada in the 1970s, because I'm sure that all of you should know about Canada and what is the political situation in Canada. You should know about the French-speaking part, the Quebec part, right? And then these people in the French-speaking Canadian geographical region, these people would be sent to English-speaking schools, of course. And of course, when they come to school, they do not speak any English, because the fathers, mothers, everybody is French. Even the markets, even the radio stations, some televisions are in French, blah, blah, blah, blah. And when these kids come to the classroom, they all speak French, but do not speak any English. But now, since Canada is an English-speaking and official language is English, they have to learn English, okay? So they started these immersion programs where they kicked some of the French-speaking kids into an English-speaking classroom where the majority speaks English, and these are English-speaking Canadians. And then they expected the kids to actually start speaking the language, okay? And then this is basically the immersion program. And even today in Turkey, some of the schools are actually, some of the private schools are actually bragging about that they are doing immersion programs. However, for the immersion programs, you need a natural environment, which we do not have. But anyway, so I'll give you another example, like the Canadian, French-speaking Canadians, the Kurdish-speaking Turkish citizens. The same happens in the east and southeastern part of Turkey. Some of the kids are coming into the classrooms speaking very little Turkish, but what happens is we are immersing them into the Turkish-speaking classes in the first grade and the second grade, and then we expect them to learn Turkish by reading, by memorizing vocabulary, memorizing some songs, and of course some poetry in Turkish, and afterwards they start speaking the language itself, the Turkish language. So this is another example of immersion program. Okay, but these are of course more natural. I'll give you another immersion program example in this country, in our country, for you just to understand that this is a very natural aspect and very natural way of teaching a foreign language. Okay, in 2015, our dean at the time, we were invited to United States, and we went to the Northern Illinois University. We did signed some agreements with that university on research, blah, blah, blah, stuff. We stayed there for like a week or 10 days. We've also visited Ball State University, Indiana University, blah, blah, blah. And in one of the meetings, one teacher came to me, one professor from that university, Northern Illinois University, NIU. He came and he said, hey, I'm very excited to meet you here in this country. You know why? Because you're receiving a lot of Syrian refugees right now in your country, okay? And say, yes, of course, it's a very difficult time in Istanbul because we didn't have these cleaning boys in the traffic lights. You know, we didn't have them in the last years, but after 2015, we started having them again on our roads, whatever. And he said to me, hey, you know what? I'm really very curious about what you're doing with these kids because teaching them a foreign language, Turkish, for example, is a very exciting time to research that phenomenon. I was like, oh my God, because this was a real, and we all know this is a real problem for this country, and still it is. And you should, in the Faculty of Economics, I think you should know much better than myself. I'm just only an observer, but you might have numbers. So what I said to him was, oh yeah, you know what we're doing? And he said, yeah, we are not teaching them any Turkish. So what do you do? Come on. And I said, hey, we planted some of the Syrian kids into our Turkish schools. And then at the time, 150,000 Syrian kids went to Turkish schools, Milli Eğitim type of schools. And now we have more than 500,000 Syrian kids from beginning from 2018. We sent all of these kids, we planted them. And you know what planting is, right? Planting like trees into Turkish-speaking classrooms where we expect the nature to do its job. And the nature does its job, no problem, because we are human beings, we socialize. When we socialize in one language, in a couple of years, we are actually acquiring it. We are learning it, no problem. So this is the essence of the content and language integrated learning, basically. This natural phenomenon of immersion programs, this natural phenomenon of language acquisition, where you plant your students in an environment where this language is spoken, and in the end, like Saim Hocam said, in the end, you receive people who are speaking this language. Of course, this will not happen over a day, but it happens in a couple of years, and it definitely happens. Why? Because the kids read in that language, the kids talk about matters and talk about things in that language, they socialize in that language, and in the end of the day, what happens in a couple of years is they start speaking the language itself. So basically, this is the essence of content and language integrated learning. And in this context, of course, the university perspective actually is, like Sayın Hocam also said in the beginning of the talk, he said that yes, first of all, we want to go international. We want to receive more international students. And for this, our lessons should be in English, of course. Number two, not only international students, but our students should also be able to speak in foreign language, because while they're doing jobs, they have to be doing it internationally as well. So in this context, we want them to actually speak a foreign language. So in this context, content and language integrated learning is what you're going to do right now, theoretically. Content from economics, and then language integration goes into that. Why? Because in certain content is actually given with a certain language. It does not change. It's always the same. Yeah. So for you as well here, it's very important to prepare all your materials in English and then just go and recite them. I promise you, it's going to be very difficult in the first year when you use them for the first time. But human nature, in the second year, everything will be very, very easy. The first year, a little bit of toiling. You know what is toiling? You know what is toilet? Yeah, toil, to have really very difficulty, to struggle. But then in the second year, everything is very, very easy. Why? Because you already have the basics. You have the basic language now. And for the second year, you're going to socialize much better, much easier. So in this context, CLIL is going to be what you're doing with your students and yourselves as well. We are doing the same, not only in your departments, in your faculty, but we are doing it in the medical faculty, as you know. We are doing it in other faculties of economics or other faculty. In our faculty, for example, we are raising language teachers, and in this context, we are actually teaching them in English, with English. So this is content and language integrated learning. And then, like I said, rationale for CLIL is actually this basic phenomenon of natural acquisition of the foreign language. And there is this theory that talks about basic interpersonal communicative skill acquisition, which is for social and conversational situations. And this is going to happen to your students after 1 or 2 years of education. They are naturally starting to speak the language because they acquire some of the vocabulary, they acquire some of the ways, some of the sentences, some of the chunks, and in the end they start talking with this. But of course it takes 2 to 3 years. The conversational language, conversational foreign language takes 2 to 3 years to acquire. We also call it a playground English. The playground English, which is, you know, would you like some coffee? Let's go to cinema type of talk versus more cognitive academic language proficiency. This takes, and I think Sayın Hocam actually wanted to talk about this, and he mentioned this, but not the BICS. He was talking about the CALP, and the CALP is actually taking 5 to 7 years for students to acquire. We use the same system in this country in the Anadolu Lisesi, Fen Lisesi type of schools. So we started from secondary school and we continued into the high schools in the late 90s and in the beginning of 2000s. We used this system actually, and now it is only surviving in the university settings. Okay, so this is basically what CLIL is about. We are teaching mathematics, we are teaching science, we are teaching other topics with foreign language. Of course, it had other problems for us, but then it was like 5 to 7 years because orthogonal and high school, when we put them together, 3, it was 6 years, almost what the world was telling us to do. And we did it, and we really had many students who were actually speaking the language in the end of this Anadolu Lisesi and Fen Lisesi stuff, right? So the 4 C's of CLIL, I'm not going to talk into this because you don't need that information, but what I want you to understand is speaking a social language versus academic language are 2 different things, and one takes longer than the other. So this is basically what I'm talking about and I'm suggesting. So when I say you're going to have trouble with English for the first year, yes, of course, until you prepare, until you read, until you present it for the first time, no worries. On the second year, everything will be much easier for you because you have the basics, like I said, you have the basics communicative language. A good listening activity in this kind of a class, for example, like I said, you prepare, if you can prepare a worksheet before your presentation, which your students, when you're speaking, have to follow and do something, then this is going to be very easy for you to control them, to control the classroom with your foreign language, even if you are not speaking it that well. Right? So, like I said, small tricks will help you achieve the task of teaching with a foreign language, actually. All right, and then task-based. This is actually helping the clear type of the content and language integrated learning type of approach by actually telling you that the task, doing tasks in the classroom using a foreign language is actually a very good way to acquire the foreign language without thinking about the language itself, all right? So like I said, you prepare worksheets where they have to do a diagram, where they have to complete one process, where they have to write some vocabulary, some words for some complete sentences, whatever, like I did previously in my presentation. And then if you give them these types of tasks, one, you will be able to control the classroom. The classroom management will be easier. Two, they will all be doing the same thing, all your students. They will, number three, language will not be the primary focus, but the primary focus is going to be what they do, the task itself, writing a word, finding a word, making a relationship between a word, writing a number in a I don't know, pie chart or whatever you're talking about, whatever your content is. So in this context, this is basically another theory that gives you a good start for your job teaching a foreign language. We are also teaching all of these to our English teachers. And why is this? Because we want them to do good in their classroom. So not talking about the grammar, not talking about vocabulary, but about communication, but about being able to express themselves, but not the language itself, because language is different, content is different, like we said. Okay, and then of course we also want them to achieve this interlanguage, right? And in this approach, what we have is a pre-task, the task cycle, and a post-task. If you want to really go with this, no problem about this. And then in the pre-task, what we do is we introduce the topic and the task. Of course, we tell them what to do, blah, blah, blah, blah. And then we ask them to do it in pairs, in groups perhaps, yeah, or individually, it doesn't matter. And then we give them some time to plan stuff. And then we want them in the end of this task to report it back. And then, like I said, this is a good communication between yourself as a teacher and the students, yeah? And this is all controlled by you. You know what they're going to achieve in the end of the lesson, you know what they're going to write, you know what they're going to present, and then this is very safe for the teacher if the teacher has problems with a foreign language initially. But like I said, this is only true for the first year, second, third year, you'll be much, much better. And then the language focus, but of course you don't need this language focus in the end because you're not teaching languages. Perhaps we can call it content focus, yeah? What are the most important words that they have to acquire? What are the most important numbers that they have to learn? What is the ideas that they have to come up with? And this is basically what you can do. So pre-task, task cycle, and then the language focus. Use it as content. So I'm not going to, of course, go all of these because you can just read them anywhere, and you know much better than me how you can present your content, because like I said, I'm not expert in economics, but we are also dealing with content. Like for example, I'm teaching linguistics, I'm teaching lexicology, I'm teaching lots of other content, valid topics and matters in my teaching, of course. So in this context, of course, like I can do these as well, like myself, yeah. But like you see, don't do everything yourself. Let the students do that as well a little bit. And in the post-task, do this and that, blah, blah, blah. Now, I want to come to a new theory that is emerging these days, and you will really like it very much because it's called the translanguaging. Okay? The translanguaging is accepting, and of course in our context, it's very important, accepting that your students can speak Turkish, and can speak English, So in this context, from time to time, putting some Turkish words in your sentences is not a huge problem, is not a big problem. If you can't really make the sentence, and if you don't really know the English word, and which you don't have to know everything, of course, after a couple of years, you will know everything, no problem. But until you learn it, translanguaging is a very good strategy to do. What is translanguaging? Translanguaging is putting some Turkish words in between your English sentences. It does not hurt anybody, don't worry. It does not hurt you. It does not hurt your teacher face. It does not hurt anything. But it helps your students understand. It helps you as a teacher tell and present your content easier. And this translanguaging is actually prevailing in the foreign language business. And there are some games developed. There are some Erasmus projects done on this idea, where if the students, for example, are speaking French, they can do French and English in the same time when they say a sentence, and then this does not hurt anyone. And but translanguaging, this idea is for language teachers. The language teachers are always very strict about, hey, say a whole word. This is not. This does not sound English. This sounds Turkish. Blah blah blah. Forget about all of these. Relax, because translanguaging is there to help. So I can use Turkish words in between if I really want to. Like, for example, when I was saying Sayın Hocam, this is Turkish. So I should not try to go and find words for Mr. blah, blah, blah. You know? Just go ahead and do it. Be very natural. And once you start doing it and you're becoming very natural, and then it's very easy for your students to actually connect to you. And it's very easy for you to tell what you really have to tell them. So this is basically what I'm going to tell you. Just relax. It's not very different than doing a Turkish lesson or anything else. So translanguaging. Let's not. And if anybody wants to say something to your because of your English or blah blah blah blah, just go ahead and say, hey, come on, go and check translanguaging, and then let's talk again about this issue. So this is basically the end of my presentation. So I'll be very happy to answer any questions if you have, of course, as long as they're in English. I'm just kidding. So yeah, thank you very much for listening to me today. And this is the end of my presentation.
Sayın Doktor Öğretim Üyesi Tuncer Can'a konuşmalarından dolayı teşekkür ediyoruz. Şimdi bu sunumla ilgili hocamıza sormak istediğiniz sorular var ise mikrofonunuzu açarak hocamıza sorunuzu yöneltebilirsiniz.
Hello, sir. Melikşah Kaçar here from Ministry of Economics Department. I have a question, if it's okay.
Please.
Are there any online or offline programs that we can recommend to our students to use during classes and after classes, of course, basically to aid them to achieve more understanding, make them more active during classes? Thank you.
There are zillions of things that you can use. First of all, I didn't mention about this because I thought that this presentation is going to be this class where you're doing everything face to face. Okay. However, and I actually prepared my first presentation for you for online teaching, because next year we're all going to, I think next first semester in the next year, we are all going to still do online teaching, and we already decided to do that. So there are zillions of programs that you can use. What are those? Well, first of all, even if you don't know anything, just go and use the Google tools, the Google Docs, because during the classroom they can work together with Google Docs and do a little bit of these cooperation and collaboration, group works, pair works based on these. And what else? They can actually share this with you, and it's very easy for you to share those with your with other students. Yeah, there are zillions of things. Let me just into the chat write you some of the. Write you some of these. Where is it? The Padlet, for example. Padlet, for example. Answer Garden, for example. I can, zillions of things. I mean, there's not only one thing and actually I'm teaching using instructional technologies in the foreign language classrooms. So you can imagine zillions of things that I can tell you about using. But like I said, it's a very good start to use Padlet, because in the real time, when they're doing their assignments, their tasks, they can just write it and then you can just reflect it onto your screens. And then in the classroom, they can watch all of these. Yeah, so there is no limit to that.
Thank you very much. So
Yes,
I will check out the Padlet for sure.
Thank you.
Sorunuz varsa alabiliriz.
Hocam ben sorabilir miyim?
Buyurun hocam.
Professor John, thank you very much for your contribution. Actually, I want to ask about the offline classes too, because this year some of our students hesitate to contribute to the classes, especially because of this internet connections, and they a little bit timid about their language level, etc., etc. So how can we open up them in the online class? Because we have a limited time, we have a limited access, not only this online or offline softwares, but also can we use videos, for example, or what can we do to contribute them to the class?
Very good question. This year in March, since I'm the Vice Director of the Foreign Language School of Foreign Languages at Istanbul Üniversitesi, we really had the same thing, because most of our students, 12% of our students really didn't want to contribute into the classes. But what we did was, and let me explain in 2 words what we did. Okay, first of all, when we are talking about the content, we are talking about 2 things. Number 1, we are talking about asynchronous learning. And in the second phase, we are talking about synchronous learning. What you're telling us is they're afraid of the synchronous part, actually. They are not afraid about the asynchronous. Okay, so what do you know what we did? It was very easy because we took all the classes. We had 33 classes, around 1,000 students, 900 something. We put all of these students into 2 apps. One of them was Edmodo. Okay, this is what edmodo.com. We put 900 students into Edmodo, opened up classes there, gave our teachers classroom codes and the students, of course. And you know what happened? They started writing, they started reading, they started listening to things their teachers gave them. So what happened was, actually they started listening, they started reading, and they started doing their tasks, their homeworks online in their free time, but not with the teacher. So there is nothing to worry about, number 1. Number 2, we asked them to do the classes in Zoom, the face-to-face and synchronous classes in Zoom. So what happens is, if they really wanted to come to the classroom, that's okay. And if they really wanted to share, that's okay. If they really wanted to speak, that's okay. But we didn't force all the students, but we forced all the students to Edmodo, because we wanted them to do the offline activities, like I said, reading and listening and then writing, because it's okay. The synchronous is only for speaking. So in this context, it's not very difficult. It was really very easy for us, and a huge success. And in the end, do you know what we did in the end for evaluation and assessment? We asked them to we asked our teachers to evaluate and assess only the asynchronous part, but not the synchronous. And because we know some students are shy, some students might not have enough internet for to go into the synchronous lessons. So like I said, we were very frank and we were really very rational in our decision, and everybody liked the idea, and the students too. So it was a very nice transition from face-to-face into asynchronous offline remote education. So this is my answer: Edmodo and Zoom together, not only one or not only the second. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Soru alabiliriz.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Sanırım.
As well.
Buyurun Ahmet Hocam.
Can I ask that you have no one in your classroom who wants to or ready to talk to in English or something else, you know, because of their insufficient, you know, level of language skills and abilities, particularly during the, you know, distance learning time that we are now in the middle of it. What would be the remedy or your recommendation to such kind of, you know, group of students?
Okay, okay, but before, of course, answering this question, I have to explain what it means to speak a foreign language, right? Because speaking skill is different than reading and listening and, of course, writing skills altogether. The research shows if one student is good in speaking, all other three skills are good too. But if these three skills are good, it doesn't mean that the speaking can be good. So what is the difference? Okay. The difference is in the reading, in the listening, in the writing, you have time. Okay. In the speaking, you don't have time. It is, why do you have time? Because 2 paragraphs, you have time to read it. Nobody is there, you're alone. Writing, 2 paragraphs, 100 words, you have time, nobody is there, it's okay. Listening, you listen again until you understand, no problem, okay? So this is first of all, what is different, why these 3 are different than speaking. So what do we do? What do we have to do with speaking? Okay, we have to initially start by actually letting them do it when they are alone. How is this possible? Well, very possible these days. YouTube. Our tasks, when you give them a task where they have to answer, we can start by asking them to actually do a little bit of videos. They can just have themselves in a telephone. Yeah, in a telephone, and then they send the video to you initially, first, and then this is a building period. Initially, they will start building it slower and slower. Number 2, what is different between reading, listening, writing, and speaking? It is also that all these 3 are quantifiable. What do I mean by quantifiable? I'm talking about read 2 pages. You count 1, 2, 3. Listen to 30 seconds or 1 minute or 3 minutes listening. 1, 2, 3. Write 250 words. 1, 2, 3, 4. 250. You see, I count. They're quantifiable. Speaking. How is speaking quantifiable? It is not. So how can we quantify speaking? Very easy. Record your answer in 30 seconds. Record your answer for 1 minute. Record your answer for 1.5 minutes, and then slowly. And let me give you one app that you can do it very easy and for free. It is called the Flipgrid. Okay, Flipgrid. You can ask your students to Flipgrid you, to send you their videos answers, okay, in speaking. And I promise you, do it 3 times. The 4th time, ask it to do it in the classroom with you. They're going to do it because by that time, they will have more motivation. They will have more self-confidence. Speaking is about, first, knowledge. Number 2, it's about self-confidence. Why am I here to talk to you? You're a professor. Because I have self-confidence. First, I know what I'm talking about. And 2, because I have the self-confidence I can do it. And that's how I can talk to you. So the same for students. The students are also afraid because they don't feel well with language, but for this we have to understand that they have to feel self-confident and learn the content. The content comes from you, but the self-confidence comes with the small strategies that we do. 30 seconds video, send a 30-second video, 1 minute video, 1.5 minute video, I promise you. If they do a 2-minute video for you in anything, present about anything, they're going to be speaking in your classroom too, no problem, because they will have self-confidence. So This is what we have to do. Quantify speaking and then make it alone. Okay, start by doing it alone when there are no other people, and then slowly they start speaking. Nobody is born by speaking. It happens in 3 years in nature. Until 3 years, the kids listen, they prepare themselves, they say words. After that, they say 2 words together. After that, they say 3 words together: subject, verb, and object. And this is what we call speaking. Until then, this is just language-like sounds. Yeah, so this is my answer to your question, Professor. Slowly build up the speaking.
Thank you.
Thank you. And if your students don't want to show their faces, because we experienced that, no problem at all, go and use, you can go and use some avatar type of apps. Flipgrid is for real faces, but if you want, you can use also, you can ask them to do it with Voki.com. They go there, they record their voices only with an avatar face. And it does the same thing to them. They start seeing themselves as speaking, although it's an avatar, because they don't want to share their faces digitally, which is completely understandable in this world. So you can do both Flipgrid with real faces or Voki with avatars. And I can give you other tips as well, but like I said, I mean, I'm also teaching using instructional technologies for language learning and language teaching. That's why I have extensive experience with that. Let me just give you one link, and then if in your free time, you can just go ahead and watch, and you can see other possibilities of what can be done to achieve speaking skill, okay? You can use the 3-dimensional virtual environments for this, where they are playing like avatars, and then with these avatars, they can start speaking anonymously before they start speaking with their real faces. So it's happening. I tried that. Okay, other questions, please?
Sorunuz yok ise oturumu sona erdireceğiz. Sorusu olan var mı? Son soru olarak alabiliriz. Sanırım yok. Hocam çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Desteğiniz, emekleriniz için.
Tabii ki.
Bu seminerin düzenlenmesine yönelik desteklerinden dolayı dekanımız Sayın Profesör Doktor Sayın Yorgun'a, seminere konuşmacı olarak katılarak bilgi paylaşımında bulunduğunuzdan dolayı size, seminerin hazırlanmasında ve organizasyondaki emeklerinden dolayı araştırma görevlisi Melih Kaçar'a ve fakülte sekreterimiz Serkan Saraç'a teşekkür ediyoruz. Başka seminerlerde buluşmak dileğiyle sağlıkla kalın.
Teşekkür ederiz. Sağ olun.
Görüşmek dileğiyle.